An American merchant brig was found drifting, untouched and completely abandoned in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. All her cargo was intact, food and water were stocked, and the sails were set, yet not a single soul was on board, and no one ever saw the crew again. What would you do if you found yourself trapped in a situation where everything around you pointed to a horrific, unexplainable disappearance, leaving you utterly alone with the whispering wind and the open sea? Imagine standing on the deck of a passing vessel, cutting through the freezing gray swells of the Atlantic, when your lookout points toward the horizon. Floating there, drifting lazily across the water, is a two-masted brig. Her sails are up, catching the cold wind, yet she moves with an unnatural, erratic grace. There is no smoke coming from her galley. There is no silhouette of a sailor walking her deck. As you draw closer, the name painted in crisp white letters across her stern sends a chill straight down your spine. Mary Celeste. It was December 5th, 1872. What the crew of the Dei Gratia was about to discover when they boarded her would become the greatest maritime mystery in human history, a puzzle of a ghost ship that has baffled detectives, historians, and scientists for over a century and a half. To truly understand this legendary maritime tragedy, we have to look back at the historical records of late 19th century transatlantic commerce and roll back the clock just a few weeks to November 7th, 1872. The port of New York was a chaotic, freezing labyrinth of trade. Pier 50 was choked with cargo, shouting merchants, and the heavy smell of salt and coal. Tied up to the wharf was the Mary Celeste, though she hadn't always carried that name. Originally built in Nova Scotia and christened the Amazon, she had a cursed reputation right from the start. Her first captain fell violently ill and died within days of taking command. Later, she collided with another ship in the English Channel and suffered a fire. Sailors whispered that she was a bad luck ship, a vessel touched by misfortune. Eventually, she was sold, refitted, and renamed Mary Celeste, hoping to shed her dark history. On board this chilly November morning was Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs. Briggs was a devout, deeply respected, and experienced New England mariner. He wasn't just the captain, he was part owner. He believed in this ship, and more importantly, he believed in his family. Captain Briggs didn't sail alone. In a rare and bold move for a harsh transatlantic commercial voyage, he brought along his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia Matilda. For Briggs, family and faith were inseparable. He left behind a comfortable life on land to keep his wife and child close by his side. Along with the Briggs family, the ship took on a hand-picked crew of 7 hardened sailors, men chosen carefully by the captain for their sobriety, skill, and reliability. Among them were German immigrants who were trusted friends of the first mate. There was no indication of mutiny, no sign of bad blood, and no hint of trouble brewing in the smoky taverns of New York. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste slipped its moorings, caught the autumn breeze, and glided out past the Statue of Liberty, heading toward Genoa, Italy. Her cargo was 1,701 barrels of raw commercial alcohol. She carried enough food, water, and supplies to last the family and crew for 6 months. They were sailing into what should have been a routine commercial delivery. Instead, they were sailing straight into a legendary phantom tale. It was the afternoon of December 5th, 1872. The British brigantine Dei Gratia was cutting through the heavy gray swells of the Atlantic Ocean, roughly 600 miles off the coast of Portugal, when the captain's sharp eyes caught something deeply troubling in the distance. A ship was moving erratically. Her sails were strangely trimmed, and she was listing to one side. Why wasn't she responding to signals? As the Dei Gratia pulled alongside the vessel, the captain recognized her silhouette immediately. It was the Mary Celeste. She should have been safely anchored in Genoa, Italy, weeks ago. But instead of a welcoming crew active on deck, there was only a chilling, hollow silence. Dead silence. The captain of the Dei Gratia ordered a small boarding party to lower a boat and row across the choppy, freezing water. As they climbed up the rotting, slick rope ladder and hauled themselves over the ship's rail, a heavy sense of dread settled into their chests. The main deck was completely deserted. No footsteps, no shouting orders, just the rhythmic, terrifying creak of the timber rolling with the ocean's swells. They checked the deck thoroughly, but found zero sign of a struggle. The ship's daily logbook lay open on the mate's desk, its last entry dated 10 days earlier, November 24th. Everything above deck appeared orderly, yet an invisible, suffocating weight hung in the air. Something went terribly, inexplicably wrong here. And whatever pulled these people away left behind a mystery that would terrify even the most seasoned sailors of the 19th century. The boarding party stepped cautiously down the companionway stairs, descending into the captain's quarters. What they found inside made the blood run cold in their veins. Everything was completely dry, yet bizarrely abandoned. On the table, a sewing basket sat open with a piece of child's clothing resting beside it, as if someone had just stepped away for a brief moment. A bottle of cough medicine sat undisturbed on a shelf. In the galley, the crew's breakfast plates were untouched, and food stores were still fully stocked. There was no sign of violence, no ransacked chests, no bloodstains. Even the ship's cargo of 1,701 barrels of commercial alcohol remained almost entirely intact, with only a few leaking barrels at the bottom of the hold. But then they noticed what was missing. Everything vital to navigation and survival. The ship's chronometer, its sextant, and its navigational charts had completely vanished. The ship's single small lifeboat was gone, ripped away from its davits, as if the crew had abandoned ship in a blind, frantic panic. Yet, why would experienced sailors flee a structurally sound, fully provisioned vessel in the middle of the open ocean? Whatever terrifying force drove them off the safety of the Mary Celeste, they took only the clothes on their backs and a tiny wooden boat, sailing straight into a watery grave, leaving behind a ghost ship that would never speak of its secrets again. As news of the abandoned ship reached mainland ports, the world erupted into frantic speculation. What could possibly drive an entire crew to flee a seaworthy vessel? Investigators tore through every possible explanation, starting with piracy or mutiny. But that theory quickly deepened into a stranger puzzle when they inspected the captain's desk. Valuables, money, and the captain's personal items were left untouched, yet the ship's official customs papers, shipping manifests, and registration documents had completely vanished alongside the navigation sextant. Some theorists whispered of giant sea monsters or supernatural forces snatching souls from the deck in the dead of night. Others pointed fingers at foul play by the crew of the Dei Gratia who found her, suspecting they might have forced the crew off to steal the vessel's legal papers, though no such plot was ever proven. Slowly, modern historians and scientists turned to more baffling clues left behind in the logs. Investigators found the second mate's slate covered in panicked, hurried coordinates that placed the ship dangerously close to treacherous reefs where no sane captain would willingly navigate, suggesting someone on board was operating under extreme psychological stress. Adding to the madness was the weather log contradiction. Just days before she was found, the log showed the Mary Celeste had survived terrifying, violent gales and heavy seas. Yet, when she was boarded, her rigging was mostly intact, and her cargo had barely shifted. She had weathered a hurricane without taking structural damage, meaning the crew did not flee from a normal sinking ship. Something invisible, terrifying, and deeply psychological had cracked their resolve. Some scientists suggest a chilling modern hypothesis that a shifting cargo of crude alcohol caused invisible, toxic fumes to build up inside the hold, creating a sudden explosion hazard. Fearing the ship was seconds away from blowing apart, Captain Briggs may have ordered everyone into the small lifeboat to wait out the danger at a safe distance, only for a sudden, violent squall to sweep the exposed boat away, leaving the Mary Celeste to sail on completely alone. A tragic misunderstanding of nature's raw, silent power. To this day, the final resting place of Captain Briggs, his family, and the crew remains an absolute void. After the Mary Celeste was sailed into Gibraltar by the crew of the Dei Gratia, she changed hands multiple times, becoming a symbol of lingering misfortune and bad omen among superstitious sailors. Some owners even claimed she was cursed, pointing to later crashes and strange financial disasters that plagued those who bought her. Eventually, her final captain intentionally ran her aground off the coast of Haiti in a botched insurance scam, leaving her broken timbers to rot beneath the tropical waves. A fittingly mysterious end for a phantom vessel. Yet the ghost ship lives on. Why does the story still capture our imaginations after more than a century and a half? Because it reminds us of how fragile human existence truly is against the vast, indifferent power of the ocean. In a single moment, a world can vanish, leaving behind only open water, whispering winds, and a legacy that time can never sink.